You previously led product management at a wide range of companies. How is product management different at OpenAI?
Very. It's, to some extent, product is different at different companies. A lot depends on the founder and the culture of the company. Twitter was probably too much of a consensus culture, and so we could have moved faster. Instagram, you had Kevin Systrom, who's one of the best product thinkers, I think, in the world. At OpenAI, obviously, Sam is a visionary and pushes us to think big, but also leaves room for us to kind of figure out what we need to build the right things. But really the biggest difference is in every place that I've ever worked before, you kind of have a fixed technology floor, and you're trying to figure out how you use that to build the best product you can. You're trying to understand your users, what their problems are, but you kind of know what you're working with from a technology perspective. At OpenAI and with the AI ecosystem in general, the technology floor is not fixed. Like every month or two, computers can do something that computers have never been able to do in the history of the world. And you also can't quite see it coming. Sometimes you have a sense that there's going to be this new capability in the next model. You can kind of see it coming through the mist, as it were. But you often don't know until the model's really baked. Is it 80% good at that thing? Is it 95% good at that thing? Is it 99% good at that thing? And the way that you build a product for an 80% correct thing versus a 99%, super different. And so, a lot of this is we're figuring out on the fly, and the world is changing. The technology is changing so quickly. It's a huge challenge, but it's a fun one.
Yeah. So. Not just for you guys, but also for your customers, right?
Yeah.
For developers building on top of your platform.
Yeah, I was in a meeting with one of our enterprise customers recently, and they asked if they could have they're like, we would love, this is all great, we're happy, but could you give us a 60-day notice of all the things that you're shipping? Because it'll really help us. And I was like, I also would like a 60-day notice of all the things.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. Yeah, you mentioned enterprise customers. So you guys serve both consumers with ChatGPT, right, as well as developers with your API, right? And since this is a developer audience, let's talk a little bit about the developer side of that equation. Can you share a little bit about the strategy for your developer-facing roadmap?
Yeah, and we just had our dev day yesterday, which was super exciting. It had a lot of big releases. In general, the philosophy is more AI is better for the world. So the more that we can get AI in the hands of developers who are going to do amazing things with it, the better. And so we try and put all of our frontier models into the API. We try and bring new capabilities, with multimodal capabilities. Like yesterday, we just launched the real-time voice API.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. We're super excited about it. We launched distillation yesterday, so you can distill bigger models into smaller models that are very good at doing specific tasks, doing it cheaper. In general, we want to bring more intelligence. We want to make it cheaper. We want to make it faster. We want to make it safer. And we want to give it to the 3 million plus developers who are using OpenAI through our platform, because you all are going to help bring more AI to the world, and that's going to be a fundamentally good thing for people around the world.
Were any of those launches the most exciting for you?
I think distillation is going to be a fundamentally important one, because it will just enable more uses of AI. It's kind of amazing how, the trends in this space are wild, right? I think if you go back to the initial API launch, GPT-3, I think, and then you compare today, GPT-4o mini, so one of the most capable models we have, is I think it's 1% the cost of what GPT-3 was when it launched. So it's massively smarter, it's massively safer, and in 2 years, less than 2 years, it's come down by 99% on cost. I don't know if there are many industries like that, but it's fantastic, because the more that you get, the more AI becomes available, and the cheaper it becomes, the more use cases you can apply it to, the more problems we can all solve together. So I mean, we're just trying to put it in the hands of more people. So I think distillation's a big one. The advanced voice mode is just, I mean, I could talk about use cases for that all day long.
I just want to echo your point here that we've seen with Ray, every time you can make something an order of magnitude faster or cheaper, you're going to unlock way more use cases.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was in Seoul and Tokyo a few weeks ago, and was in a bunch of meetings with customers over there. We had translators for a bunch of the meetings, but then you'd have places where you were just kind of milling around afterwards, looking to talk with people. And there were a number of folks with whom I don't speak Korean or Japanese, and they didn't speak English. We had no common language, so I took out ChatGPT and I said, "Hey ChatGPT, I want you to be a translator for me. When you hear me speak English, I want you to say it in Korean. When you hear Korean, I want you to say it in English." This is using our new advanced voice mode. If you have Plus, you can use it today. And it did it. And I was able to have a conversation with someone. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to say 2 words to each other, let alone have a full business conversation. And that was profound. But you think about other use cases of that. It's not just about business. Think about travel and tourism and what might change if people aren't afraid of going places where they don't have any of the language. It's like ideas like the universal translator.
That's been around for a long time, right?
It used to be like, Star Trek, right? It used to be science fiction, and now you've got one of these things in your pocket. It's
I
just
remember seeing some
amazing.
demos of this maybe like in 2015 or a little while back.
Yeah.
But that is truly incredible. Let's talk a little bit about the competitive landscape. What do open source models mean for OpenAI's business?
I'm glad they're open source models. I mean, I think they, I think it isn't an either or. It's, again, about, from a philosophical sort of mission perspective, it's about getting more AI into the hands of more people, and I think that's great. I also, worked closely with Mark for a number of years. I have a ton of respect for him. It's a super smart strategy for Meta. So, we do a little bit of open source. We have our Whisper models, which do transcription, which are totally open source and have been for a while.
Whisper models, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, I think it's great. We get more AI in the hands of more people, and ultimately what people want is they're going to try and find the most capable models for the best price that, also are as safe as possible. And more choice is a good thing.
If you think about the gap between the quality of OpenAI's best models and the best open source models, do you expect that gap to grow or shrink, or is it,
I mean, we're certainly going to do our best to make it grow.
Yeah. How do you think about competing with the cloud providers? They have the resources and data to build great models.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all very different, right? In some sense, like a lot of competition is inevitable because this is maybe the fastest growing market the world has ever seen. You got to kind of take the cloud providers separately, I think. Microsoft is a deep partner of ours, and when they're doing interesting things with models, it's usually through our models. Google is more of a direct competitor, and then Amazon is like, the kind of Anthropic. They're kind of playing the field and building a platform with Bedrock. But again, more competition, more choice. Like, competition makes us all better. You all are going to get better AI models because there's a huge amount of competition in this space. And that's good for the world. And it's up to us to do things that some of those big cloud providers can't. It's up to us to move faster, to take some more risks on the product and on sort of leaning into the capabilities of these new models. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. I was really impressed with the release of O1, the reasoning model.
Yeah.
Can you share anything about just challenges with turning that model into a product?
Naming? Who's played with O1, just out of curiosity?
Wow.
Awesome.
Okay, almost everyone.
So one of the interesting things with O1, there were a bunch of interesting challenges. One of them was, so O1 is, for those who haven't played with it yet, you think of the normal kind of model building paradigm that we've been in, where you go, from the OpenAI one, GPT-2, 3, 4, 5 in the future, et cetera. They just get, you're putting more compute onto a bigger pre-training data set. You're doing this massive pre-training run. And the model is sort of very broad and has accumulated a lot of facts and knowledge. but it's still kind of system one thinking, right? You ask it a question, you get an answer. The difference with O1 is it actually, if you'll allow me to anthropomorphize a little bit, it's learned to reason. So when presented with a question, it doesn't just spout out an answer, it thinks. It develops hypotheses, and then it will test those hypotheses against what it knows, and will affirm those hypotheses or refute them, and then use that to develop new hypotheses. It's really, if I gave you a hard question, you would think about it for a little while, and in your head you'd be developing hypotheses. Well, it might look like this. Well, no, actually it doesn't that. And it's kind of doing that behind the scenes. And so it's actually able to push the frontiers of knowledge. It's not just about what it's learned. It can reason and get to new places. And it's fundamentally different. So it's not just about doing a bigger pre-training run. You're actually applying more inference at question time. And that's a fundamentally different way to scale a model. And it's really good at things like science and reason and mathematics that are sort of pure reason. One of the things that we didn't know was how kind of generally valuable was it going to be. We knew that at things like, again, like mathematics and science, it's off the charts. If you use evals like benchmarks like GPQA, which are like hard graduate level science evals that you can't just look up an answer to on the internet, it's better than 90% of all grad students across every scientific field at once, which is like leaps and bounds better than 4.0. But how relevant would that be for coding or for creative writing, for things like that people were using ChatGPT for? So would it be valuable to a niche, or would it be really valuable broadly? And what did that mean for how we built the product? Also, it needs time to think. And so, it really is in the background doing a bunch of thinking. So what's the right way to represent that? And we ended up representing, we ended up sort of giving you, if you've used it, it gives you a summary of how it's thinking as it goes along. And then we'll give you the answer, which is also interesting because it lets you see a little bit about how it derived its answer. But like tons of new questions and challenges as we were building it along the way. The good news is the reception has been great. We made it available in the API, which is something we were super excited about because we knew that developers were going to have some of the hardest, most challenging use cases of all. And I can talk about some of them, but we've really seen great uptake and also just some inspiring things that O1 can do.
Yeah. Actually, just going off of what you said about how broadly applicable it is, it's clear to me that some of the hardest science research tasks, maybe curing cancer, will require models that have tremendous reasoning capabilities. I think they're on the other end of the spectrum. There are tasks, maybe summarizing a news article, that don't require as much reasoning. Where are most tasks going to fall in that spectrum, if you fast forward to the future?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you think about some of the most economically valuable tasks, if you will, today O1 is sort of context window limited at the end of the day, and we'll improve that, and it'll have longer context windows. It'll be able to think more. So today it thinks, for 60 to 90 seconds. It's kind of funny. Sometimes I think I ask it a hard question, and it thinks for 5 seconds and gives me an answer, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't able to challenge it. But it'll kind of top out at 60 or 90 seconds. You could imagine a world where you ask it a hard question about how you cure some particular form of cancer, and you let it think for 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months. And so there are certain questions, I think, that will be where you'll want just like massive amounts of thinking time. And then the questions around like, hey, summarize this email for me. I think one of the things that's going to change is we're used to a model where the AIs are, they're pretty smart. We take for granted, you very quickly like update your firmware with how quickly something gets good. I was reading some article about somebody who was trying Waymo for the first time, and they said 10 seconds in, they were like, oh my God, watch out, there's a bicyclist over there, is it gonna, and then 10 minutes in, they were like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. And then 20 minutes in, they were bored and just checking their email on their phone. Like how quickly we update to like amazing new technologies in the world.
Actually, for people who are traveling in from out of town, before you leave San Francisco, you should try some self-driving cars.
You definitely should. It's magical. But we're still used to this world where we kind of have to like instruct the AI on a very individual basis. Like, here's an email. I want you to summarize the email for me, and then I will take the email and do something else with it. I think we're going to move from a world of the AI answering questions for you to a world where the AI is actually doing things for you in the real world and accomplishing tasks for you that are not 5-minute tasks, but are 5-hour or 5-day tasks. And even, I think, mundane things, business, workflow, efficiency kind of things, take a bunch of reasoning in that world to put a more complex plan together and then act on it and periodically check back in with you. So I actually think O1 and just reasoning in general is going to be a much bigger part of the future.
Yeah. So does that mean that every developer building on top of this model is going to have to kind of rethink the UX of the product they're building to take account for these increased capabilities, but also significant delays?
Well, I think it's almost more of a fundamental philosophical shift where you're used to this sort of system one level thinking with AI where you can ask it a question and get an answer. You're going to be able to ask the AI to do things for you. It's going to be much more agentic in the future. And it's a different way of building products, I think, at that point. So yes, for sure, things like UIs will change because things will need to be more async. But actually, it's just like products that weren't possible before will become possible. And if I were a developer, if I were starting a company, I would be thinking about the kinds of things that are just on the edge of what the AI can do today and building for those use cases where they like don't quite work today because 3 or 6 months from now, they're going to work super well and you're going to be ahead of everybody else.
Yeah. Do you have guidance for the developers here? Like, when should they use O1 versus other models? And for example, you mentioned coding. Is coding a good O1 task or no? Yeah,
actually, that is one thing that we found. O1 is a very good programmer, especially when you have hard things. If you're just like, hey, I need you to like write me a Python function to like sort this list, it's fine. Every model can do that. But when you have really tough programming questions that require you to reason through and make a bunch of trade-offs, that's where O1 really specializes. I think in general, though, there's something about in a world that's evolving this quickly, trying to think about the kinds of things that the AI can't quite do. And when you build towards those, you know that you're building a product that doesn't quite work, but in 3 months it's going to work, and that's going to be an awesome thing. And Sam has said a few times, if you're building something and you're afraid of OpenAI's or anybody else's next model launch, then you may not be building the right thing. If you're just kind of like covering in gaps and where the model doesn't quite get something right, then that's not as good of a place to be. If you're building something, though, where you can't wait for the next big model launch because it's going to make whatever you're doing 10 times better, that's an awesome place to be because it means you're pushing the frontier of intelligence. You're pushing on like new product areas that weren't possible before and are just becoming possible. And I think that's the most interesting set of things.
Yeah, that's a great heuristic. So when will the rest of the world catch up on O1?
I mean, tomorrow, next year, 12 months from now, that's the fun part of this industry is there's so much to be discovered. All of the labs are doing really great foundational work, and sometimes with slightly different focus areas. So they'll have like, one will be ahead in one place, one will be ahead in another place. I think that's like an exciting part of the world. There's a lot of competition. You have to be at your best. You got to work really quickly. Our job is, I assume that at some point other labs will figure out, the techniques, the ways that we built O1. Some of this stuff diffuses over time, and it's our job that by the time they do that, we're already 3 steps ahead. And we really do feel like with O1 in particular, the techniques, we're kind of at and I mentioned it's a different paradigm of scaling. Like it's not this massive pre-training run, it's inference time scaling. We think we're at the GPT-2 sort of phase of that, and we see a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can go pluck to make these models better very quickly. So by the time people do catch up, we're going to try and be 3 more steps ahead.
Yeah, and this trend of introducing additional inference time compute or complexity, that's something that I think is very relevant for this audience, especially if you're thinking about the serving systems to power that. It's going to get a lot more complex.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, let's talk a little bit about consumer products. So you contributed to building some of the world's most successful consumer products, right? Twitter, Instagram, and others. Ultimately, social media figured out how to monetize through ads. Right? So how does consumer-facing AI ultimately get monetized? Right? Is it $20 per month subscriptions? Is it something else?
It's a really interesting question, and I'll just say up front, I don't think we have all the answers right now. We certainly have no current plans to do anything with advertising. But especially as the models get smarter, imagine, we've heard examples of senior lawyers at law firms who said, I just had O1 write a legal brief for me. That would have taken a $1,000 an hour associate 6 hours, and it did it in 5 minutes. What does it mean when you can suddenly do $8,000 of work in 5 minutes for like $3 of API credits? So I don't think we know all the answers. Yeah. And also, part of our mission is to bring this to everybody. There are lots of places in the world, and we have a free product, and we always will. We believe in it deeply, and we really try and make AI cheaper and cheaper and cheaper so that we can offer more in that free product. But there are also going to be reasons that you want the $20 a month subscription, and there are a lot of people in the world that can't pay $20 a month. So how do we, on the one end, sort of share in the value that we create if we're taking something that used to cost $8,000 and doing it in 5 minutes for a small fraction of that, and also try and bring AI to the rest of the world that may or may not be able to pay? It's an open question.
Do you think, where will this land? Will it end up being $3 worth of API tokens, or do you think you'll be able to charge something closer to $8,000?
I have no idea. I think the world is going to change. And if it becomes possible to do these things for $3, you also can't go and charge $5,000 for them for very long, because someone is going to come along and charge, very quickly these things end up at around the actual cost of production. So it's just a different world. And we are kind of all of us in this room creating that world together, and we all get a chance to kind of shape it.
When you're planning the ChatGPT roadmap, do you have certain product analogies that you find helpful? Perhaps thinking like, oh, this is kind of like search, or kind of like a messenger app, or anything like that?
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, the best analogy I've at least personally found is trying to think of the systems almost like another human. And I'll give you a couple examples maybe. With O1, it's gonna think for a while, right? So you have 30 seconds or 60 seconds maybe where someone's asked a question, it's thinking through the answer. So what do we do in the UI while that's happening? If I ask you a hard question that you don't know the answer to, most people don't just start blurting out chain of thought, right? And just start talking nonstop as they think through the problem. And most people also don't just go mute and turn around and stare off into space for 60 seconds. You kind of give periodic updates. You're I'm thinking it might be this. No, give me a sec. You kind of give periodic updates, and so that's where we landed with what the actual product does. Also, with voice mode, there are different ways. You realize how different it actually is when you're speaking with someone versus when you're writing. I don't know if you've ever written a talk for yourself to give and then said the words that you wrote. It feels super stilted, at least it does for me. And you have to change, I have to change the manner in which I write in order to make it feel natural if I'm going to speak it. And we had the same kind of challenge with getting advanced voice mode right. We had times as we were building it where it would always follow up with you'd ask it a question, it would give you an answer, and then it would follow on with another question and kind of feel like it was needy a little bit, like it was trying to extend the conversation. There are these funny ways in which just trying to be like, okay, what would I want a human to do in this scenario gives you some guideline for how the AI should behave. Because it's funny, in these, the behavior of the model itself is actually a product unto itself. The sort of personality and other things. So we have PMs and engineers who are thinking about how we shape the personality of the model.
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting insight. It's not obvious, but written English and spoken English are just different languages.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, at least for me, I would sound super stilted. And by the way, if you took this and just digitized it and read it, I'd probably sound like a complete idiot.
So UX is super important here. You're talking about a lot of UX breakthroughs that you guys made. And of course, the chat interface was a massive UX breakthrough. Voice mode is another one. Are there other ones we haven't, or you haven't rolled out yet or accomplished yet, but you think are important?
Well, I think it's really clear that model responses need to become richer. And right now, it's a lot of text back and forth. One of the things that we believe and are building towards is that you should be able to interact with these, with our models in every way that you interact with another human being. So, I type a lot to people. I've typed a bunch to you this morning. We've interacted that way, and of course, that's how most people interact with ChatGPT today. But I also speak, I also see, and we want you to be able to speak to the model and have it speak back. We want you to be able to hold up your phone and show the model what you're seeing and ask it questions about what's going on in real life. We've talked about Sora, where the model is generating video on the fly. So all of these things need to be just like natural and completely integrated. Model responses, I think, will be much richer. So you won't just get text back, you'll get multimedia, you'll be able to act on that, there'll be a lot more going on there. And that all I think is pretty clear. It'll be interesting to see how long the chat interface actually holds. As we shift towards more agentic behaviors and you're asking the model to do things over a longer period of time and it's checking back in with you, I actually think chat may still hold as sort of, it'll need to evolve, but as a rough paradigm, it may still hold. Because, I guess, as like a model of how we interact as humans, chat and conversation in general is actually how we collaborate. And so if you think of yourself as collaborating with an increasingly intelligent AI and chat as just a model for conversation, it scales with humans today. So we'll see. It's one of the fun things about getting to build in this space.
On a different topic, people have expressed concerns about models being too left-leaning or right-leaning or politically correct. If you think about values, is that something that the research team handles and the values are just built into the model during training or post-training? Or is that something that happens at the products layer around the model?
Yeah, these are really interesting questions. And by the way, I doubt that if we polled everybody in the room, we would have agreement on it. There are some questions, if you're asking it about politics, things that people are 50-50 on, obviously the model shouldn't take a stance there. What if you ask it about, is the Earth flat? There's like 99+% agreement on that one, but not 100. So should the model take a stance? What if it's 80-20? These are tough questions. So what we've done is we've published a model spec. And we've given a ton of examples and basically said, this is the spec that we are instructing our model to follow. And it's out there. It's in natural language. You can go read it. We put it out for open comment. We take comments on it all the time. And so if the model is not behaving in a natural way, there's two reasons that can be, if you don't like it, there's two reasons. One, it's not following the spec, or two, you disagree with the spec. And in the first case, if it's just not following the spec, then that's effectively a bug and we should go fix it. If it's not following this, or if the spec is just not what you would like it to be, then that's a debate that we can have. But at least we have a published spec that we can go, as a society, kind of argue about. So that's the approach we've taken. I think so far it's been pretty, like we have great debates around the spec, and the spec has to evolve as the model gets new capabilities. But so far that's held. But it's better to have a document that you can have a debate about versus just being like, oh, I got this answer and I didn't like it, go fix it OpenAI. So that's the approach we've tried to take.
I agree that's a great approach. For people building products on top of the model, a lot of us here are building not just models, but really building systems around your models.
Yeah.
What is the right, if I'm thinking about safety and things like that, and safety, of course, can mean many different things, but if I'm thinking about safety, what is the right unit of analysis? Is it the model, or is it the system and product around the model?
Our belief is that it's both, from sort of a defense in depth approach. There are certain things that we want the model to know, never to do, never to answer. And then there are certain things that I think will change based on the context of the application that it's in. So for ChatGPT, we're going to take a certain set of points of view, whereas if you're talking about the API, there's more freedom for you to take a different point of view. If you're a nuclear fusion scientist, there are certain questions that we don't want the model to be able to answer in ChatGPT, but probably makes sense for you to be able to talk about. So there are places where we're just going to take a stand and say the model shouldn't do this, it's illegal, or it's fundamentally not something that we want a product that we build to be able to do. And then there are places where it's going to be much more context dependent, and we want to allow for that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm curious, when writing this spec, coming up with this spec, what skill sets and the people contributing to this do you find are most important for doing a good job?
So we actually employ, in thinking about model behavior more generally, we actually employ a bunch of writers that can help the model sort of express itself and get its emotions right, if you will. It's also, so when I was at Twitter back in the early days, like 100 years ago, Ev said something that has stuck with me, which kind of carries through to OpenAI today. But his thing was, no matter how many smart people you have within your walls, there are way more smart people outside your walls. And that's so true about any sort of societal change sort of issue. And the way that's relevant at OpenAI, we believe in this philosophy of iterative deployment. So when it comes to new technology and all of the challenging societal aspects that come with it, from safety all the way to much more mundane things, our belief is that getting the models out there and progressively exposing them to broader groups of people is actually the way that we make them safe. It's actually the way that we slowly drive positive change in the world. And so that's kind of the approach that we take here. It's why the model spec is public, it's out there, and we solicit comments on it and improve it with the feedback of people from all around the world, not just with the feedback from a bunch of people at OpenAI.
That makes sense. And actually, we've benefited a lot with Ray from the broad open source community and contributions from so many different companies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe to close, can you share a little bit about what you think the future will look like and what you're excited for?
I think it's going to be fun. So I gave the example of ChatGPT acting as a translator for me, which was kind of mind-blowing as an experience. I'm also excited about things like when every kid growing up has a personalized tutor. I'm actually sort of surprised that doesn't exist today. Khan Academy is doing interesting things there, but nothing seems to have taken off. Like, I bet most of our kids in the audience are not yet doing that, let alone people all over the world that are maybe less sort of AI attuned. But that feels like a thing that's almost inevitable. And when you look at the outcomes that kids have when they get personalized tutoring versus going through school, I mean, it's a multiple.
Actually, can I ask you that? Does that fall in the category of something where there's room to build a lot of value on top of OpenAI's models, or something where the next model is just kind of going to render my work obsolete?
Oh, I think there's a massive amount of room. I think in some sense we're approaching this point, or maybe we're already at this point, where we're less intelligence limited than we are eval limited. Like it's more, the model has the intelligence to do all kinds of things, and it's really more about applying it to very specific use cases, teaching it things that it may not know right off the bat, but can learn. Applying data sets that are not public. You have private data that's gained through years of doing some business, and like making the model really good at specific things. There's no way that we are going to do most of those things. It's why we partnered with Khan Academy, for example. It's why we build an API. We want developers like you all to go build a bunch of these amazing things, because the faster we can disseminate AI out into the world, the faster we believe the world becomes a better place. So I'm super excited for that, and I think the models are going to get good at a really fast clip, and that means that we all have a huge amount of opportunity ahead.
Yeah, that point about being eval limited is really insightful. Kevin, thank you so much for sharing your insight. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.